All right, so everybody had fun last night, yeah? I know, yeah. We're just starting to record, yeah. So yeah, I was thinking about going into a topic, and I think it's a relevant topic. And if it's boring or whatever, just let me know if you don't think it's interesting or ask questions or whatever. Yeah, just keep talking like you were like, go ahead and like, here's kind of what I was thinking. So Joel and I were talking the other night, and I've been trying to make this video for years about like when you're in Asia, right? All of a sudden things change. Your social status changes, right? The way people look at you changes, for better or worse. You're never the same, right? When you come to Asia, right? And so because of that, you're going through a lot of complex things, right? Just like, you know, the rock stars, they all commit suicide, right? It's because of this same reason. It's because their social status, I figured it out. Their social status changes, and it's very difficult to deal with, actually. Because humans we're wired to be in a group of 150. And as soon as you're born, you kind of know where you are, your family. And then you become a man, and then you kind of like fight your way into a certain level. And then that's it, right? There's like one big monkey, there's other people, and you know exactly where you are. And humans don't mind where they are as long as they know, right? Like you know where you stand, right? So it's very difficult when you get to a new place. It actually is quite difficult psychologically. So what will happen is if you're not good at it, you will stick to the same. So you'll see guys who wear cowboy hats here. Like they dress the same way they did back home. They never change. They talk about them the same way. Everybody can say, you're the coolest guy. You know, it's great to have you. And you just still think, I'm the guy in Finland at this small town. This is what I have, this kind of car. I have this kind of education. Nothing can change for me. And you just continue in that route, right? And it's very important, I think, very healthy to realize that it's all a construct. Your mind is just a story you're telling yourself over and over and over, right? But it had a good reason, because you're in a place with physical things like money, cars, and people look to you a certain way, so it seemed very real to you. So whatever your status is, right? And I say this especially to dudes like Mexican dudes, because you grew up in America, right? People look at you a certain way, right? I'm telling you, the biggest change is for dudes like you, because you come here, and the Japanese don't have a place for you. They just have they got a place, but it's like basically you got foreigners, right? So you're in the foreigner category. So all of a sudden, you're no longer in this kind of like essentially marginalized group or separated group. You're just one of the boys, right? Totally. I know you might think yourself partly that way, but there's part of you too that is tied to like being limited, right? To where your group is, right? And I know for myself, because like my family wasn't rich, right? And so when I went to California, it was really difficult for me. It took me a decade to like realize I was just a normal, free person and I could decide who I was. Even though I was in third grade, I still thought of myself like I was from a shitty place. We didn't have any money. You know what I mean? Like these guys here in California can play sports. You know, they know rules of games. I didn't know, you know, so I thought of myself a certain way. It wasn't until I think we won our first soccer championship that I started to think, hey, maybe I can kind of be Californian. But still part of me is not Californian still. Like it's still Arizona, right? So it's very difficult, I know. It's really, really complex actually, where you stand in the hierarchy. So when you come here, what you can do is you can make some pretty grievous errors when you're here. So one of them is not changing, right? And not being able to go with the flow, because most people have a little bit, it's complex, but you, in a sense, you have a higher status. In a sense, you have a lower status. So I'm not going to go into it too much because there's too many people and everybody, I could talk about each person, how it's going to affect you, because I actually know. But I'll just say a little bit. Like, for example, Bank, you look Asian, right?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, but in a way you don't.
No, I look like mixed, foreign.
Yeah, like
the Thai people, I don't even look Thai.
You don't quite look Thai, right?
Yeah.
But you look like a Thai movie star at the same time, right? When your hair's down and shit, you know, you could totally do that, right? So Bank is going to have a very different experience than we will in Japan. The people will expect him to speak Japanese. And if he doesn't, they'll kind of socially make him pay, right? Whereas a black dude, not as much. A black dude can be here and not speak Japanese for a long time, and it's no problem. But for you, there's going to be pressure to fit in. It's like, dude, you're Asian, get your shit together, and you know, fit in with the group, right? And that's how Japan is such a homogenous place, right? Is because they do this stuff, right? So that's one of the key things, is you need to know you're not other people, but you're not where you were back home, and you have opportunities you don't know about. So just to quickly go on Asians in Japan, there's a lot of blog posts from people who are here for 3 months or 6 months, and they might say a lot of things very inflammatory. I don't agree with those things. Okay, so the things on the internet about this, I've never read anything good about it. I think Asians have a special opportunity in Japan, just from my own experience. Me and my friend Steve, he started a company same time as I did, or he was just before me, and then I went next, and then he did something, I did it, then I started doing things that he followed. We kind of were always kind of like in the same. And he's Korean, right? His family's Korean. I think he was born in Korea. He speaks Korean and he speaks Japanese very, very well. And when we meet people, everybody would react to us differently. And he's been here so long. He's not here right now, but he was here so long that he wasn't butthurt about us getting treated differently. But when the push came to shove, I realized his position was much better than mine. And most people wouldn't realize that. He borrowed like millions of dollars from the bank when his company. I walk in the bank, I got nothing. I couldn't borrow 1 penny from anybody. Nobody, on the surface, people treated me nice at tourist sites. But when it comes to big things, important things, he had the edge. So if he has children here, those children are going to be trained and accepted as Japanese, because they're going to look Asian, and as long as you look Asian and you're born here, you were accepted. In the old days, you weren't, based on your name, and if you read on the internet, this is still going on, but basically it's not. Okay, basically in Japan, it's very egalitarian, and you can be accepted for all intents and purposes. There are subtleties, and I could go into the subtleties because I understand them, but I think in the end of the day, if you're born here and you're basically raised as Japanese, you're accepted as Japanese by 99.9% of the people, right? So the thing is like, he was able to borrow money. If he had children here, those children would be totally accepted in a Japanese school. Every day they wouldn't be asked, oh, your Japanese is so good, you can use chopsticks. Just really patronizing shit. That if I had kids here, they would have to go through that every day, right? For their whole life, right? Now, with their friends, they would be taken as Japanese, right? Their school friends, native language Japanese. But anytime they went to a convenience store, they're going to be looked at as a foreigner. So when did you come to Japan? Some of these people don't even speak English, right? Some half Japanese here, they don't even speak English. And it's just like, there's just like, it's like difficult every single day. So everybody has their challenges. And you have your things you can do, get away with, right? Or things that you have an advantage on. So I think, after thinking about this for a long, long time, and having many types of friends, I think you got to fucking grab what you can grab. So whatever your type is that has an advantage, you got to fucking grab it. And no shame, right? Just go for it, whatever it is. If you're getting laid more here, get laid more. Don't let anybody tell you anything, because you're getting fucked over somewhere else, okay? Trust me. You're getting fucked over in one place, and you're getting an advantage. So don't stop yourself. Like, allow yourself to enjoy, hey, I got this advantage. And the other thing, you have to like work around and just accept it. In some ways, you're treated actually pretty poorly, right? And you got to be able to mentally handle that and also adjust, right? So that's just something to think about, kind of food for thought, right, for you guys. And then also your country matters a lot. That stupid book you're carrying, right, that passport, right? If you're from like Bangladesh, they're going to treat you differently just because that paper. Where you look the same, but your passport is Canadian, boom, you're okay. You're treated differently, right? So there's a lot of stuff like that. London accent, solid, right? You got great, that's like That's solid. So for example, he could get jobs we couldn't get. There's certain schools where they want people with a British accent. Because the thing is, in America, we have for years tried to get rid of these differences. And if you went to Disneyland and you saw the dolls and everything, there's no woke on, you know, in any of those. Everything here is, the Japanese are what they are. So I'm teaching you how to adjust to that, right? You can't change them. That's what you realize when you're here. It's overwhelming. There's 130 million people here, and they think similarly about things. And they beat you down if you're here. If you try to fight the tide here, believe me, you're going to get your ass kicked. Big time. Every single day. So don't do it. You got to adjust. Flexible. Okay. They think of me like a clown. Okay. But what do I have advantages on, right? How can I minimize that clown thing? And what I learned with the clown thing is don't smile a lot. Because the more you smile, clowns smile, right? So with white guys, you like say a good-looking white guy, you smile too much, they'll see you in a good way, but they'll also see you as not a serious person. Which is a pretty big fucking diss, really. Because you might be an author, you might consider yourself a very deep thinker. The Japanese, they don't care about that. But at the same time, the girls might want a summer lover just like that to drill their brains out on a beach. And that's a pretty fucking dream scenario for a lot of guys. So it is kind of accepting. And also too, if you're any flavor of person, you have advantages and disadvantages. And also too, I should say this too, is it changes every day. So for example, I was here when Michael Jordan got popular in Japan. So before Michael Jordan, you know, it was really like having dark skin was like really a negative thing. Like even being in the sun was negative. So Japanese wear hats all the time. Nobody wanted dark skin because it was like you're like farm labor. That you're like, yeah, it was no good at all. But then all of a sudden, it was really weird when Michael Jackson too, and then Michael Jordan. Both those guys got popular about the same time. And all of a sudden, the Japanese didn't know what to do. And so like, are you a superstar or are you a farm labor, right? So it was like really difficult for them, right? And they found their kind of balance with it. But what I'm saying is like, I was here when David Beckham got popular. So when David Beckham got popular, all of a sudden, anybody who looked anything like Beckham was in serious demand. All you had to do is make a classified ad, say, looks like Beckham, and you're going to have fucking hundreds of chicks sending you messages, right? And if you really do look like Beckham, it's going to be more than messages, right? So you have to look at pop culture. So you might be hot in Japanese minds even for a couple decades, and then you might be not hot. So even if you adjust today to who you are, in 10 years, you're going to be seen differently. Trust me, 100%. And that is hard, especially if you're going down. It is difficult, but you just have to look, you got to suck it up and just adjust. And you'll have new advantages, right? So you have to look for those new advantages. So your social, get used to being comfortable, being up there, and then being seen as less. Okay? You can't change people. You just have to adjust in the moment, have a good life, right? Don't be like these guys. They spend their whole life being victims. You're just like, oh, things are going down on that front. And what else is happening? What am I doing with my life? Believe me, people get stuck in this shit. And it can be really tough on them. I know people for sure that leave Japan but become alcoholics. It really affects you more than you want to admit, okay? Because everybody looks at you and they think in the same thing. Either this or this or this or this. It's like, you know what I mean? It's always shifting, right? Depends on what part of town you're in. If you're in Harajuku, you're looked at one way. If you're in like downtown where all the workers are, you're looked another way. People from outside Tokyo look at you one way. You know what I mean? People that work with foreigners look at you one way. These girls at Starbucks with a lot of foreigners look at you one way. And another Starbucks, they look at you another way. Because there's not many foreigners in that area. And it's their own experience too. So you have the group, you have popularity, you have individual people, and like stuff like that, right? And you have religion. So people that are very religious here, they might be from a religion from your country. And then they absolutely loved you. Like, oh, Thai Buddhism, oh yeah, come over and do you approve of our Buddha? Like, they'll ask you like you're a rock star, like you're some kind of historian. And I'm serious, you have to take that role. You are partly diplomat for your country. That's why you don't throw garbage. That's why you don't talk loud. It's because it's not just you. It's kind of the same as, I guess if you think about it, if you're from a small town and somebody from a certain nationality comes in and they do something and then everybody thinks of those people a certain way. It's human nature. It's the way it is. And we're also ambassadors for our race, for our country, you know what I mean, for Western society or for wherever you're from. You are. You might not like it. You're a fucking ambassador for Finland. Trust me. 100%. You're going to know. You're going to have to study finance history. People are going to suddenly ask you difficult questions. Like when I was in Sweden, right? I was in Sweden. I was talking to this guy at work, and he said, he gave me a piece of paper, and he goes, I can draw all 50 states and all 50 capitals. He goes, can you do that? And I couldn't, right? And so the next day I stayed home from work, right? I'm like, fuck this. I memorized everything. I memorized Sweden, all the fucking places in Sweden. I go back to work, I'm like, let's do it, man. And Sweden too, right? Every fucking, whatever they are called, prefecture or whatever. At the time I knew them all. So it affects you because people challenge you. Because some people are dicks, right? So you want to get where you got some defense on this shit, right? You want to know about the nuclear bomb if you're from America. You want to know more, right? Because somebody will just come up to you and they'll just like start talking about it, and you're debating with this guy, and you're like, wait, I don't even know about that. You got to know about that if you're from America. You got to know about a lot of stuff, right? Depending on where you're from. If you want to like have jiu-jitsu, you got to have defense, because people will come up and like not really attack you, but kind of, right? It's like they can really kind of like say something like really fucking boom, like in a party, and you want to know that there's something you can say. Like, I mean, I'm not saying you're fighting with them, because you might agree with them, but your knowledge of the situation will earn you respect and confidence with yourself, because you'll know, for example, that Sweden let the Germans during World War II, right, go through Sweden, right, and basically use the country. So it's seen as a pacifist country, but actually supported, didn't want to fight, right? So people will know stuff like this, and they'll go into it, and you want to be able to admit your country's faults, like the things that you wouldn't talk about in Sweden. You have to learn to talk about here. And the same with any country, Thailand, the slaves, whatever it is, you kind of like, as you're longer overseas, you'll have these kind of challenging situations that you'll want to know more about. You'll wait, like, did we actually do that? Like, holy shit, that's not good, right? We shouldn't have done that. And like, yeah, it's not only was it wrong then, but it's wrong that it's covered up, right? And if you know that, people will be like, okay, like they didn't get you, right? At the same time, like you were reasonable, right? So people can get stuck on things, right? Well, they'll kind of like nail you on something, right? And then they're just waiting for one person to have a good discussion with them, and then they're kind of done with it, right? So you're kind of helping them too, right? The people who do this kind of shit.
I didn't actually know the thing that you just mentioned.
Yeah. The Swedes totally let the whole German army go attack Finland, right? And they used the railroads, and a bunch of Swedish guys actually volunteered to go fight the Finns and like become part of the army. And so like a lot of Finns are not into that, right? Because they're like, wait, that's not what's that called when you're not part of the war? Neutral. That's not neutral. Like you should have fought those guys and stopped them from coming in, right? So you learn about your country. So for example, I went to Vietnam just to learn what America did there. I wanted to learn all the good stuff and all the bad stuff so that I could discuss things. And I hired a guide, and I learned all about the Vietnam War. And I actually found things that I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting to find super terrible things, and I was ready for that because I wanted to know. After living here so long, the Vietnam War comes up a lot, right? And so it's good to know. It's good to know, like, and also you want to know, I mean, you kind of want to have a little defense and a little offense too, right? It's like, if they're coming at you real hard, you want to be able to say, something that they don't know, right? It's just part of being an international person, is that you're able to hold your own in any conversation, right? About your country, about people that look like you, about people that look like you, what they did in that country, because that's another issue, right? What people did in Sweden, or sorry, like say Swedish people did in Japan. Like they might have built a railroad or a bridge or a building. If you know that, that's kind of a good thing to know, right? Like there's a Japanese bridge that in Bangkok. There's things that Japanese did in Bangkok that if you know about those things, it's like, well, we did some things. We built a bridge and we did this, and supported Thailand in this time, So if you know these things, as you're here, you'll find these things. As you travel, you'll find this international life interesting, and so you'll start to get more interested in this stuff. It's not just to debate, it's actually to know. You'll want to know, like the truth, right? That's what it's all about. I mean, that's what Ronin's about, man's about. So you want to know the truth, like what's really going on? What are people really doing? What's really happening here, right? And that's why I just can't stand when I hear the discussions of race in America, because I just think it's so lacking in depth. It's so lacking in depth. It's just terrible, actually. It's horrific, actually. The way people are being presented and talked about, compared to the complex world we live in, and the world where we are, right? You want to know things. Like, I mean, just one small thing, but like, just like, here's one thing that I get hit by as an American, and also British people get hit, is a lot of Chinese art ends up outside China. And there's a narrative by a movie, which wasn't honest, basically saying it was all stolen, and it was all gunpoint, and everybody was terrible. But in reality, have you guys ever taken a painting by gunpoint? Have you, anybody here? Raise your hand. Nobody? Nobody took a painting by gunpoint?
Not lately.
No? Did you ever buy a souvenir? How many people bought something in another country? We all bought something with no guns, right? Guess what? History's not that different. And so when you actually search in Chinese history, it's usually some dude is selling something, right? And then it's actually an artifact, right? But the guy who bought it didn't even know. Like, I've bought stuff and I didn't even know it was an artifact. Like, you know what I mean? I had some tiles. I didn't even know I couldn't take them out of Thailand, right? I just got these tiles. Someone was throwing them away. Turns out they're like artifacts that you can't take out of Thailand, right? So like there's things you just don't even know. You see some cool tiles in the garbage. I went and got some bags and I took them home, right? They were taking down this old temple. I'm like, these are awesome. And they're going to throw them away. They're breaking them up. I'm like, no. I got a whole stack of them, right? So like even the workers didn't know they were special. They were just breaking them. But the government was like super serious about those tiles. That's how complex it is. So when you look at things 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago or 300 years ago, don't assume everybody's evil all the time. Like, if you actually go back and you'll find people sold things, money existed. Like in China, like people sold me stuff that I shouldn't have bought. People were trying to sell me like endangered species and tiger fucking blood and stuff. And back in '89, it was real tigers. They had paws, and the guy had a bag of stuff, and he was just selling it, right? Like that kind of is like, life is so complex when you actually travel. But people on their fucking high horses who basically hate other people, creating hatred, they'll just make up a narrative. I'm not saying that people haven't done bad things. People have done terrible things in history. But I'm just saying that I personally, after 35 years living overseas, basically, I found history to be a lot the same as like of today. People travel, people meet people. It's not that different. Like if you look during the war, a lot of Chinese helped Japanese during the war. If you actually, and they sided with Japanese, they helped Japanese, then they regretted it. A lot of Koreans helped Japanese. But a lot of times it's based on kind of limited information. You know what I mean? Like, we're all limited guys. You guys, we're all weak. We don't know shit. You know what I mean? You might do something you regret for the rest of your life. It can happen. Like, just forgive yourself, forgive other people. Try to look for the truth in history and international relations, right? Because you'll find more truth traveling than you ever would back home about your country. You'll learn so much about your country. And when you go home, you'll never be the same because you'll know so much, good and bad, and also you'll have adjusted. You'll be much more of a flexible person too. Because as you get older and you get more successful, you want to adjust to that. You know, you want to be able. You don't want to be one of these guys. You know, we had the Depression in America, right? So when I was growing up, there was all these Depression era people, and they lived through the worst time. So they could have a gazillion dollars, but they would not spend one penny on anything. Like they just would not. And it was because they grew up during the Depression, and they learned too well. So part of being a balanced person is don't learn too well. You know, you learn, but you forget, and you change as life around you changes. Don't learn too well. If someone does something really mean to you here, don't learn too well. You know what I mean? Don't be going in your mind about it. It's just kind of like, okay, one person did something, right? That's not the whole country. You know what I mean? That's not all of history. You know what I mean? Because you got to forgive people too, because people will do stuff. And not necessarily from Japan. You might be here at an international party and someone does something, you're like, fuck, it really affects you. You know what I mean? They really attack you. Like some people are just waiting to, this is a thing is what I'm saying. Like in expat groups. But in the end, expats end up being the coolest people. You know, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's like we all kind of become wise about geopolitics. One of the dumbest things that other countries like America does is they don't take advantage of all this wisdom of these expats. They hire these Harvard people to run to be secretaries of state, and they don't know anything about the country. They don't even know how to get people to agree, or they don't understand how decisions are made. They don't understand anything, and they go in there with this preconceived ideas that are so dumb. You know, just one of them is that China is kind of a democracy in many ways. You know, I'm you know me, I never say anything good about the government there, but there is good things, right? And like China's a huge place. If the government was too mean to the people, they would just all attack them, right? They just overwhelm them, right? But actually the government there, kind of like prison guards or whatever, you got to take the prisoners into consideration, right? The prisoners need time in the sun, right? They need a little bit of time. They need to blow off some steam. You got to look the other way on some rules. Like if you don't do that, there's going to be a riot, okay? And they're going to come and just tear you apart, right? So you have to let people, you know, like you're there, but you're also kind of there leading in a way, right? You're kind of just like riding the horse, you know. You got to be like nice, otherwise your days as a prison guard are not long. And in any kind of authoritarian situation, you'd be surprised how much democracy is there. But it's because of blood. It's because they're gonna like tear you apart and do all kinds of terrible things to your family, right? So you know that you gotta like let them have fun sometimes. You gotta give them some rope sometimes. These things it's a power thing, but you have to let them. They're kind of leading, right? So in China, it's the same thing. They don't vote, but there's like, I think there's like many, I don't know how many, but there's many protests in China, and the rules are broken all the time in order to let steam off. Don't let it grow too much, and like the Communist Party is in many ways pretty cool. I hate to say this, but they can be pretty cool. I tell you what, America's terrible at. America has no flexibility because of the rule of law. Like the laws are so strict, right? You got to follow the law. Asia, they look at your intent. Okay, so for example, you're on a building and you're not supposed to be up there. And you're sitting up there and you've got a can of tea and you're taking a picture. Technically, you're trespassing and they could throw you in jail. Now, if you're up there with like 40 cans of beer, playing music, you know, throwing water balloons, it's totally different, right? Even though the law is the same, right? Basically, you're breaking the law, trespassing. In America, what I hate about America is they have no subtlety. they have that nobody has any right to decide anything. It's a strict authoritarian law, and it just goes across the board. And they come down on you. The old days, America used to be flexible. The cops used to look at us and say, they're good kids. Just let them go. They're not going to do it again. Right? Now it's like, no, they broke the law. You got to fucking... And then next thing you know, they're in the system, right? And they become criminals. I personally have seen this happen. I don't care what people think. I've watched this. And I've watched it happen here. People get forgiven. You write a letter. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And then you think about it. Next time you're like, I don't want to write another letter. It's like, I shouldn't be doing that. They're not doing it. I'm not going to do it. Right? So you do kind of the Japanese way, or the Asian way, I should say, is more case by case. It's case by case. I like case by case because it makes sense. To me, it just makes more sense. I mean, of course, you got to trust people to make the right decisions, and there'll be mistakes. But the American way, I just can't stand. I just think it's so dumb. I think it's making criminals. I think it's separating people. It's case by case. The kids are good. Kids fucking do shit right. Boys do stuff, especially boys, right? Like if I would have gotten arrested, if they would have thrown the book at me, I used to steal cars when I was 14, right? But it was just because I wanted a place to be alone with a girl, to bone her, right? So I'd like find a way to steal a car, and then I would take a chick. I'd pick up a chick. Then I was the man, right? 14, pull up in a car, take her, bone her, and then take the car back, right? So that's what I do. I always take the car back, right? Yeah. So it's like I needed a moving like hotel room, right?
Yes.
It didn't cost any money, right? And I just wanted to I was going to bring the car back, right? And that's totally different than a guy who takes it to a chop shop, right? You know what I mean? I mean, I understand, you don't want your car stolen by a 14-year-old, but I was a good driver, I didn't crash any of them.
Watch it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, it was mainly okay. It's a back seat. They're not going to notice, right? It's a big American car. Always one person in those cars anyway. He probably used it too in the 70s, right? So whatever, It was the 70s, It was easy in the 70s, yeah. It's not like today. But also people, they looked at you like, they'd kind of look at you like, how many times have you done this? Like, what's your attitude? What are you using it for? And they would make a wise decision. And then as a kid, you'd feel it. You knew they were letting you off. You might do it one more time, but then you kind of, you know what I mean? There's this fairness we have, right? So I think that's a better way. I think Asia's more like that. So as long as you know that, if you do get in trouble, just explain the situation to the guy as best you can. Just even if he seems like a hard ass, just say like I like literally just. I mean, here's the pictures. Like I was just taking pictures. You know what I mean? I was just I want to see the sunset. And then the guy will be like, okay, whatever. It's like, because maybe yesterday or whatever, some other guy who looks like you was up there, did something else, right? Just as long as you know they can be flexible here, that's good, And then also too, you can do something that's not really illegal, and they can really fuck you over here. It's not really illegal, but they can kind of get you if they really want to. It's like in America, it creates people who push they're always like nanny in America, I feel like. Like it's just the borderline what is legal, right? Yeah. Whereas you can't do that here. Don't do that here. It's very unwise. Yeah, because they can get you on something. If they know when you're sticking it in their face, right? So it's like you're getting off, but you're getting off something maybe a little bit, but you're also not provoking him. You're not like the chinchilla in the cage, right? You're not sticking the stick in there like dun 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 dun, riling them all up, right? Like that's what they do. They go to the cops. You watch any video, they're just riling them up. I don't have to give you this. I don't have to do that. That's my right. I don't have to do that. And then the cops just like burning inside, right? And they're like, yeah, we really riled him up. We're so smart. You're fucking smart? Are you a fucking idiot? People are going to fuck you over, man. It's just, you think that the people forget this shit? They might fuck over someone who looks like you next, but they're pissed, right? They're going to get revenge on you somehow, right? I mean, wouldn't you? Someone riles you up, right? And then you're making their sandwich. A month later, you're like, It's fucking in the drink, right? Like, here you go, sir. Your pizza. You know what I mean? Like human nature, right? So keep that in mind. So anyway, that's what I was going to say. It's kind of like a lot of stuff, but I think it's all very relevant, especially the diplomat thing. We are all diplomats. You're a diplomat for this group. You're a diplomat for how you look. You're a diplomat for the type of book you carry, passport, right? You're a diplomat for all those things depending on the situation, right? Or you're a diplomat for all foreigners, right? And so when you do something in a small town, it has a huge impact. I remember there was one terrible thing that happened was a team from some middle, like I don't know where it was, but somewhere in America.
Like Jake Paul?
No. This is way before that. This is back in the 80s. So back in the 80s, basketball team came here, and they went to Akihabara, and it was a bunch of black guys, right? And they saw there was no security at all. So everybody took like 5 video cameras. They're like $2,000, and they brought them on the bus. And then the guy who runs the shops, of course, he noticed, and then he knew, obviously it was after the basketball team came by. So they stopped the bus, and they searched the bus. And then in the Japanese newspaper, there was all these pictures, like, because they were treated really well, like as a visiting, a high-level sports team. But you know how it became, you can guess, right? It's like there was a lot of racism off that fucking one. They had no idea how much pain they caused future people here, right? It's like, those pictures were the worst, right? Because they're just sitting there and they're laughing, right? That was the worst. It was like everything that you shouldn't do in Japan. Like if you get caught for something, you got to apologize, right? You don't, because they didn't punish them. They just took them back. So the guys just got on the bus and left. They never knew that they caused insane pain to all these Africans that came here later, African Americans, African Canadians come here for like at least 20 years, It's like people just had this clear impression, like fucking watch your shit if that guy's coming in, right? And that's terrible, right? But one bus can do that, and you can do that. Yeah, trust me, if I just dread the day when one guy who looks like me does something really bad here. Like I know it's going to happen. Some idiot is going to do something, and I'm going to pay for 20 years. And I know it. I know someone's going to do something really terrible. You just don't want it to happen, right? So you just understand it affects you. It's not theoretical. This affects you. So you affect them. They affect you. Yeah. Unfortunately, now we got a lot of tourists, right? And like other countries that are not the same, but they're the same, like Russians. A lot of Russians here now. And they're causing a lot of havoc because they act differently than people from the UK, right? A lot of them have never traveled before. They're kind of escaping the war. They're just coming over. They don't really want to be here, but they're coming, Thailand or whatever, Japan. And so they're in a different mindset than we are. We're like, I love Japan. This place is great. It's totally different if you're like, I don't want to be here. I wish I was home. This food sucks, and then you go out in the world and you do things. So for example, this is like I'll land on this. So for example, Japanese never leave food, especially if someone made it for you. Every last grain of rice. You get your chopsticks, you want to get every last grain if someone makes you food, right? Don't leave like half the rice. You don't like white rice? Fuck you. You like white rice today, right? And you don't say shit about it. Like, this is delicious, right? Someone makes something for you, right? Now, of course, you don't take it to the extreme. Watch what other people do. But in general, that's the way they are. So that's a wise way to be. Even in restaurants, like a nice restaurant, same thing as someone's house. If you go to a sushi restaurant, don't like, if you have like a bowl and then there's like something on it, don't pour soy sauce on it. Like, don't just automatically do something, because that's desecrating the fucking rice. Like, look around what everybody else is doing. They're all doing it a certain way, and then you just kind of copy that. And after a while, you'll understand how disrespectful that is to the master of the sushi place. Because the real sushi chef, it's like the soup Nazi guy, no soup for you, right? It's not, they're pissed, right? The sushi guys are worse, right? no sushi for you. Like really. So now when you go to the cheap sushi place at the supermarket, totally different, right? You can just do whatever, right? In the 80s or 90s when I was here, like it mattered even at the fucking supermarket, but now it doesn't, right? Certain places matter, certain places don't, right? So that's another thing. Keep in mind is where you are, and just when in doubt, who is it that asked me? Oh, you asked me like, should we be talking loud in the park? And I just said, well, don't talk for a second. That's the level everybody else is talking, right? That's why I had you guys sit close. So just keep in mind, it's not that you have to follow it. It's not that you slavishly. You just be aware, okay? Pretty quiet around here. Kids are loud because kids don't know how to be Japanese yet.
Like the kid on the train.
Yeah, they're exactly the same. Kids are the only ones that are not Japanese yet until they go to elementary school. That's where the training happens to be a Japanese person. So if you want your kids to like fit in here, make sure they go to elementary school here. They got to go to elementary school. That's when all the indoctrination training on how to be a proper Japanese person happens. Elementary school and junior high school. After that, they're pretty good. They know what the deal is, right? So you stop looking in books, stop asking people, be aware. That's all you got to do. So before I eat in a new place, I'll just see what people are ordering. I don't just get the menu in. Because often in Japan and Asia, there's only one thing that's good on the menu sometimes. Like this restaurant's mainly for this thing, right? It's not like McDonald's, right? They're actually making real food here, and they actually care. So they have one thing that they're recommending to you. And you're like, I don't want that. I want this winter dish. And it's going to be not as good. And the guy's not as happy because it's summer. They went and picked these vegetables for you. They want you to eat them, right? Questions?
I got a comment actually. I just thought that was really interesting what Ronin was saying about the fact that you're a representative. And I was just reminded of an experience that I had recently, like, maybe not so much in Japan, but like I was out in Thailand just recently, and I had the opportunity to go to like some really small towns, and you go to these towns, it's like people have never seen a foreigner before. Like they look at you and they just look at you like this.
Yeah.
And like you realize, because then I was staying there for a couple of weeks, and like you go to the town, you go to the little market and you buy some bananas or something, and then they say to you, oh, you're so and so and you're doing this here, and you've never even spoken to this person, and then you realize like this little town of like 300-400 people, like everybody knows who I am. They're all watching me. You're representing like every foreigner in the world right now because they've never even seen anybody before. And it's a very interesting experience, and it's actually quite a responsibility. It's interesting to hear you talk about it that way.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like it depends on how small the town is. Like we're going to small towns. Now it is Japan, and there's a lot of mixing over the years, so it's not as much as it used to be. Like I used to go to places and like everybody in town would say hello to me, right, in English, right, as I walk down the street, right. You know what I mean? Because like, oh, English, right? Like, oh, he looks like that. He speaks English. They don't, a lot of people don't, right? So some people like when you go to the Philippines, everybody just says, hey Joe, hey Joe, hey Joe, hey Joe. Every foreigner's Joe, right? And then I remember being with this guy. I think he was Swiss. We were in Philippines in the 80s. He was so pissed. He's like, I'm not Joe. I'm not American. He would say that all day. He was screaming all day. Because it just bothered him so bad to be thought of as Joe, That just drove him insane. It's like, you're Joe. You're Joe. Like, okay, I'm Joe. Hey, Joe. You say, hey, how's it going? Yeah. You're just like, you're a foreigner. You're Joe. Yeah. Play along with it. It's part of the fun, too. Because they know your name's not Joe. So it is kind of, they're having fun, too. But then they kind of expect you to take it well. And if you don't take it well, not good things happen. As long as everybody likes you in the town, everything's great. You know what I mean? Like I can walk into it, and this can save your life. I've walked in very, very dangerous slums where people just like me got robbed and beat up and their rings taken, fingers broken, like right before me. And I walked in the same place, but I look in any kind of very dangerous situation. Like I like dangerous situations, so I go to dangerous places. Yeah, there's a lot of guns and danger. I like that. So I don't know why, but I do. So I'll just walk right in, and then it's like a prison. You look around, who's the boss here? You know, there's like one boss, and you'll know, like he's the boss. Then you come right up to him, shake his hand. The most pissed off guy who's looking for, he's kind of like a couple henchmen. You come right up to him, be very friendly. Like just, hey, how's it going? Give him respect. All of a sudden, free drinks. Everybody falls into line. It's like this is very powerful and can save your life, or at least a lot of money. You know, and you make friends too. Criminal friends are great, right? They can help you with shit, right? You know, you might need something, right? You know, it's,
Like what?
dude, anything. Fuck, who knows? Just any kind of problem. Like, say you're having some problem with some people, and you just talk to him. He'll either know what to do, or he'll solve the problem for you. Go watch the movie. Busting Down the Door. Yeah, that's a great movie, surf movie, about the Hawaiians, and then the Australians went to Hawaii, and they basically were like, fuck off, we're Australians, you know, get out of our way, and they won all the contests. And before it was all Hawaiians, and like Americans had got the shit kicked out of them enough to know not to do that. You know, they were careful in Hawaii, but the Australians didn't know, so they're like, fuck off, mate, you know. And then and like the movie's all about that. It's about the true story too. And then they were going to get killed, basically. They were going to get killed, and there was like the main guy, and like it seems dramatic, but if you know Hawaii, it was not dramatic. This is the way it was. And then they finally got a peace offering, and then the Australians can surf. But fuck, that shit's serious, man. So criminals are very powerful, because the criminals are the ones who know. They know people. They know, what's it called? Vices. They know people's secrets. They know human nature. Right? That's the kind of people that can help you, right? People buy the book, they don't know shit, right? Sometimes they're good, right? But, you know, you need both. Criminals are you should have a fucking criminal friend, for sure. You want to have like a low-level criminal friend? I got a friend in India, and he had like razor blades. He would pickpocket people. And I got a friend, like I've had friends who are very high-level criminals, because they all teach you stuff about yourself, about the world. Because all they are is kind of red pill people who weren't accepted by society, and then they're demonized, right? Most of them didn't even have a choice. Like, you know, I'm talking third world. Like, they didn't have a choice. They got the wrong skin. They got a fucking pickpocket. It's the way it is, you know. That's the way it is, right? I mean, let's say 40 years ago. Like, this guy's older, right? You know, this is the way it was. You know, so yeah. Nowadays,
They can save you money. The marriage wasn't good, but I saved a fortune buying the engagement ring off the back of a truck from one of my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Not even close.
Right.
Like well below a third of the actual value.
Nice.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
my friends in LA, man, he drives around with a wad full of hundreds, right? He's a thick wad. And whenever he sees a guy in a street corner with any kind of machine, he stops, talks to him. It's usually for sale. He fucking gets all his shit for his business. I'm not saying you should do this, but this guy gets shit for like so cheap. He's just always got a wad of cash. I'm definitely not saying you should do this, because I actually have never done this. I'm just saying, like, you know, like I didn't even notice the guy's on the street corner, and he's like, leaf blower, you know, he's like, $50. Guy's like, sure. He's like, he's got a brand new fucking leaf blower. It's perfectly fine. And of course, again, I'm not saying encourage street crime or give drug addicts money. That was more of a joke than anything. I'm talking like in the third world, is a lot of things are not like back home. You can't get a scholarship because you have a certain skin color. Like, you can't get any opportunities. Like, life is hard. A lot of these people are not really bad people. It's just kind of the way they were born, their family, you know, one thing that somebody did in their family, and they're just fucked, right? And they're really pretty good people, right? They couldn't go to school, you know, or whatever. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about buying leaf blowers, although I thought that was hilarious. I did, because he'd always pull over. Like, I just thought, oh, this is fucking funny, because I can imagine doing it for his business. That's what cracked me up, because the business seems so serious, right? And he had all this great equipment. Anyway, but we got to go pretty soon. Like, what time is it? Let's check the time. Oh no, we got time. But I was gonna do another topic actually. But,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't really need to do, like, crime to, like, empathize. You know, like, a lot of these criminals, they, like, you know, you explain the vices.
Yeah.
They see how people behave and understand human nature.
Yeah.
And then there's governments, you know, rules, like, maybe you're used to that, but like you said, you need both. Like,
Yeah.
knowing both,
Streetwise.
it really serves you.
Streetwise, baby.
Yeah, and
You
then
gotta be fucking streetwise.
like I work for one of the English speaking governments, and there's stuff we can do and there's stuff that we cannot do.
Yeah.
At one point I went to a meeting with the FSB
Yeah.
in
Nice.
Washington DC, and they were talking about all the individual times that Russia was referenced in Japanese anime.
Yeah.
This sounds like a very surreal thing,
No,
and
no,
it was, but like it's
Propaganda. That's company, or what do you call it? Like, let's say FSB is company or whatever. That's exactly what I'm saying. It like greatly affects the way people think about the country. What gets into the fucking manga, right? This is what America doesn't understand. They make these movies making America look terrible. Japan will always cover shit up. Oh yeah, they cover shit up like crazy because they know it matters how you see the country, right? Like you don't hear about certain things. Anytime there's a murder, it's called taking the rope, right? There's always a rope there or something, something to help the cops to make that conclusion, So I can see that these 3 people shot themselves 5 times in the back of the head because, his hand is tied behind there, So obviously, they're looking for a reason not to put the check mark in their district that this happened in their district, right? So other countries, I was just saying, when you take the train from Narita to here, as you go, look at the rice fields. There's beautiful rice fields as you go. Now, why do you see those? Because they cut the trees down in front of the rice fields so you could see them. So if there's a building, there's going to be some trees in front of it. And then they cut them down because they know a lot of people come through Japan now and they all take that train. Every head of state, every person, and they think Japan is this great rice growing nation and look at these, and it's true, but it's like they put it right out there. The Americans, they'll have like a concrete wall full of graffiti and homeless guys, and they don't think that matters. Go to LAX. It's like a homeless encampment. The whole airport's just total shit. Should burn the place down. And it's been redone. It was worse before. The roof's like 3 feet tall. You're like barely in there. And you just got out of Singapore. You're thinking America and Hollywood. Yeah, that's what they're thinking, right? 100%. And then you get there and there's this total shithole of an airport, right? It's like, that's retarded. I tell you, if I was there, I would definitely get those airports with nice, fast Wi-Fi. I would, don't let the scumbags in, but let everybody that flies in use it, and make a good impression. Have a big old, whoever the biggest star is right now, have their thing, like you can take this Instagram picture with. As soon as they arrive, man, give them what they want. Give them what they want. So here's a great story. I know this is actually a fucking great story. So there's a supermarket that I know very well. Okay. And there's another supermarket that I know very well. Both of them I know the people that started them. So they both came to Japan. The one had me and some good advice, and the other one didn't. So the one came here, the French one, and they opened up their main office. I think it was in Akasaka, right? And the other one opened up their main office in like a very small 2-story, like no big sign, Japanese flavor neighborhood, girls in yukatas walking by type place. When you go into one store, there was a certain vibe, and when you went in, the other vibe was a French supermarket. So what do you want when you go to France? You want baguettes? Yeah, you want baguettes, you want music and wine and cheese, right? So the Japanese were so excited that Carrefour was coming here. They were like, Carrefour is coming here. They were expecting like you come in and it's France. Like you just come in and like they don't know that some people don't. They want the Italian mustache and everything. They want the whole thing, right? France is like France and Italy, right? Basically, right? They wanted France and Italy. Yeah. They didn't want Czechoslovakia, right? They just wanted France and Italy, right? Yeah. And they didn't want Portugal. Yeah. They want the UK. They wanted France and Italy. They wanted people saying bonjour at the door, right? And then the sign, with the cute bonjour, how do you say thank you in French? I can't even remember. Merci. Yeah, they wanted merci. They want everybody saying merci all the time, And then free cheese, a little piece of cheese. And they would have bought the cheese like crazy and the wine would have sold out. Instead, they hired somebody not like me, and they made a supermarket that was identical to a Japanese supermarket. Nothing was different. Very high quality. It was more even astute than the Japanese supermarket. Cleaner, everything's fresher, but there was no difference. That place went bankrupt. They lost insane money. The company had to exit. They lost so much money. It's crazy how much money. Because they opened the office in the gaudy part of town. Like where you open your office is a big deal in Japan. Your headquarters, just like your house as a foreigner. Your company house, right? Where's your house? It's like you got to choose very, very wisely your house to get the right impression. So that's why I lived in an expensive place my last few years in Japan, because I realized I had a really cheap place, which is great Ronin Man stuff. But for my business, it was getting too big to do that. I couldn't get away with it anymore. I had to have a nice place. I was the shacho, and we had a business, and we had to be in a nice part of town, period. Yeah, I had to be a shacho and act like a shacho. So that's what I did. I lived in fucking Shacho Tower, and I fucking had my BMW, and it was Shacho time, right? I got the thing super cheap from some Irish guy who was leaving, but anyway, I played the role very well for those 3 years, because I realized that as much as I'm Ronin Man, I'm not an idiot, and that's what people wanted from me. And that's how my business got to the next level, right? So you do have to adjust. So the other company, they had it in a small town. So all the Japanese heard about the headquarters. So they thought that Carrefour was going to be almost like Gucci, and it wasn't like Gucci. So it didn't even fit that. They were like, oh, it's going to be like a really high-end French press supermarket. Okay, $2,000 a bottle of wine, fit $10,000, that's fine. Okay, that's what it's going to be. And they went in, and it was $10. And, they're like, wait, this isn't French, and it's not high-end. It doesn't, they're living it up, and they want us to go there, no respect for us, and no understanding of the culture. They were punished and dismissed from Japan. And the other company totally kicked total ass, right? And it was some small decisions. Part of that, very happy about that. Because these things are real. You can make millions of dollars off these ideas if you do them right. Like, say you get the right to be a president of a company and come to Japan, you want to know a lot more before you come here than just how to travel in Japan. It's totally different having a business here. A big business, a medium-sized, a small, a global, a business from this country, a business with this industry, where your office is, the staff you hire, the clothes you wear. Everything matters, right? Everything matters. Everything. And think about it. Think how detailed they are. Of course it matters. So you think it matters how you dress? Of course it matters, right? So now, you don't have to dress a certain way in Japan. Thailand, I like to dress a little bit up. And here I do too, when I'm doing certain things. But basically, the way Japan is right now, as long as, and Edgar said this in the chat, and this was very true, as long as you look fucking great, that's what you want to look. Look your best, whatever that is. Yeah, you have your best look. I'm not saying you always have to look your best, but let's say it could be casual. Like right now, I'm feeling good in tank tops, right? So I'm working out, I'm getting thin, so tank tops are good for me. Before I wouldn't wear tank tops. So it depends on how your body is, your type, your face. Just kind of adjust. And the adjustment that you make here will help you when you go there too, because you're probably out of date. You're probably losing. You probably have made decisions 10 years ago about who you are, and you realize, like, God, I'm a different person now. What am I doing dressed in the same way, same haircut, same everything? It's like maybe I could change something. Maybe I'll try something new. You know, once in a while, I'll just go to an expensive hair place, and I'll look through the magazine, or I'll look online, and I'll say, I'm going to have a razor cut or something, right? Or I'm going to do something totally new. You know, just try something completely new, and also try a new adjustment. You can do both. You can try something crazy and something new. Like, it's fun. It's totally fun. And Japan allows you to have fun. You could wear a Hello Kitty outfit, like with a tail and everything, and nobody gives a crap. And then tomorrow you could have a Harley outfit. Like, you're not tied to any one way of being here. You'll see a Japanese guy, one day he'll have something like really funny on, and the next day he's completely different. Americans are so boring, it's incredible. Like, it's almost like they just wear uniforms like school students. Like the Harley guys, they have their uniform. Every single day they put the uniform on, you know, the loose socks, the skirt. No, to me it's the same. Like, to me they look absolutely ridiculous, people in uniforms. You know, you don't want to wear uniforms. I used to wear a surfer uniform when I was growing up. Surfer uniforms got to wear surfer brands. You got to have Quicksilver, you got to have Rip Curl. Back in my hometown, everybody's got a surfer uniform, especially when they're older. Now they got it dialed, the right sandals, the right shorts, the right this. To be what? To be what? It's so fucking boring. It's so fucking boring. Mix and match, be new every day, try something new, be able to adjust to the way people see you, change your look, get, you know, whatever, man. Japan is great about that. They'll let you do whatever you want here. You can be another person. You can shave the beard. You can wear a fucking completely. We can give you a whole new look. This would be the funniest thing to do for him. I guarantee this guy's never had a completely different look. We go take him into a Korean a K-pop place. Get him a K-pop outfit. Like, that would be fucking perfect for him. Yeah. Like, it would be so difficult for you to walk around with that. You'd be like, this is, you know. But you would learn something, right? You really grow, you know, and break out. So anyway, that's about that for that.